So guys, I want you to know I'm doing a video tonight. My mom's in the kitchen with the TV on, but I don't have anything on in this room. So if you hear anything, that could be my mom. Hopefully it won't be them, but I told you guys how you can check. Just play it back at the lowest speed, which is 0.25 times, and then you can hear the difference between what I've recorded and what they're doing. Let me just pause this to make sure I close the door and more. Okay, so I'm just going to go through a few things first, and then we'll get into the gang stalking. So I did a video where I said SNL. That was the one where they cut me off when I had more than a gigabyte. I have more than a gigabyte of memory now, so they shouldn't cut me off. And they took out SNL, and then it seems like sometimes they could put this back in. I don't know what kind of technology this is, but they just told me that the reason this started also is I was talking to someone. I told you guys I worked at a famous retailer on 59th Street, and that was probably the same guy who I was asking about about something about researching family or whatever. He was surprised when I said that I had been published, and I don't know why that surprised him. But again, I think a lot of this is racism and sexism. And, this group of people, they're gangs, they're criminals, and they pass on malicious gossip and lies. And you can easily look this stuff up. That's one of the things that I've been telling you folks. None of these things are secret. None of these things are private. Years ago, 1993, I submitted a story to a famous magazine. The magazine doesn't exist anymore, but I submitted a story. And they not only accepted my story first try, but I was writing a lot of the story. I spoke to the editor on the phone, and we started writing things together. There were things I didn't know the editing process, and I was young. So 1993, I was probably like 19 years old. And the editing process, which writers know, but at the time I was a kid, I didn't really know, is that they change your story, or they, put different sentences in or take sentences out. And so the editor, she helped me get this story done, and she helped me write it. I would have gotten paid for it whether I wrote it or not, but it was such an honor for me that I was going along in the editing process at that age, and that was something I always wanted to do. And I told you guys I write. So this person didn't take time to listen to my story or want to hear my story. He was more offended that I wrote, And years later, I went back into writing. And it's sad to me that this has to come up, but they always want to make me, as a Black person, feel like I'm less than. I'm not good enough to have accomplished something. Many years ago, I'm 48 now. Many years ago, I stopped talking about my accomplishments because of this. But as my life started progressing and I was doing more exciting things, I couldn't help but talk about it. It's just like, how do you keep something exciting to yourself that you're doing? And this is why it goes back to when I was talking about researching my family history. This is the same person. Why did I tell the same person? So to me, in my mind, it was going back to the whole idea of, I'm excited about what I'm doing. I'm excited about researching my family history. And again, it was before it became so popular. I was excited to have been published. Years later, in about 2011 or so, in honor of 9/11's Memorial Fund, I wrote something for Yahoo News. I wrote under S.J. Johnson. So S.J. Shamega Johnson, and my last name Johnson. So S.J. Johnson. And I wrote about how 9/11 forced us to embrace our humanity. So I'll get the exact title later. I can't look for it, but they not only was it published on Yahoo News, they also thanked me because that enabled them to make a contribution to firefighters and the 9/11 fund. So there are things that I accomplished aside from just, school and work and life, that before I got this sick, and before, as I was starting to do things and I got older, the time when I worked at the 59th Street store, I was in my 40s. I finally had a chance in my life to kind of feel proud of my accomplishments and couldn't help but express it. Do you know what I mean? It took me decades to get to that point. So when these people came into my life and found out about it, then they twisted it and distorted it. The thing that was good about it was I was so old when they started to do it. So when you're like 40 something years old, who cares? Had they done this to me when I was in my 20s or teens or 30s, I probably wouldn't have recovered. But now I can talk to you about it because other people are starting to open up this conversation about how not only as women, but especially as Black women, our accomplishments are minimized and reduced because in their words and in their thoughts, we can't really accomplish something. And if we accomplish something, it's because they held our hands. That's not the truth. That isn't the truth. We accomplished it because we were able to accomplish it. And I'm glad that I learned the editorial process as a teenager, because then down the line, I was able to understand how you have to work with someone who's mentoring you, someone who is teaching you something. So it doesn't matter, this thing that they're not getting from this is that to minimize a person's accomplishments, when they use editors also, when they have mentors also, is ridiculous. We don't usually get the opportunity as Black folks to have mentorships or to have people who will guide us and hold our hands. We're usually on our own. We're usually not, we don't have those connections usually. So for me to have had the opportunity to be published, to work with an editor as a teenager, as a Black person, helped me understand teamwork, helped me understand the value of that mentorship. So when I got into the workforce, when I became a supervisor and a key holder to a boutique, which means I open the key, I work with the safe, I work with the cash, I do cash deposits, I do receiving, I do all that stuff. I run a boutique as a key holder when the supervising manager is not there. That enabled me to mentor people. See, they don't understand how that works. They don't understand that because somebody took the time when I was 19 years old to help me achieve my goal of being a published writer. That enabled me to help other people. The other thing that they don't want me to talk about is when I was in college, I became a tutor. And that, again, these life experiences enable me to do those things because everybody needs a mentor. Everybody needs someone who's willing to hold their hands and guide them when they need help. We shouldn't be, it's not so much being afraid to ask for help. It's some people are afraid to help because they want to keep certain opportunities limited and closed to people who should have those same opportunities. And that's the difference between people like us, and I'm telling the world about what's going on with me, and people like them who want to keep things secretive and hidden. I will not keep their secrets. And I don't keep my own secrets, I tell you guys. And I tell my mom everything. So that's one part of this. The second part of this is they were concerned that I told you guys that this apartment contains 2 people. They didn't want me to tell that because there's a limit to how many occupants you can have in a Mitchell-Lama co-op. You cannot have a lot of people living here, not only because it's fire hazard, it's a safety hazard. This is a building that has an elevator, and you have to be able to, God forbid, you know what happened in the emergency situations where buildings collapse or people have to leave. This is a fireproof building. So God forbid there's a fire. People have to be able to get the heck out of this building. And we can't if there are too many people on the staircases. We would die. But the other thing is that because it's Mitchell-Lama, it's based on your income. You're not supposed to have a lot of people in an apartment to be able to afford to live here. So they have a limit on how many people can occupy each apartment. It's dependent on the size of the apartment. So they thought in their schemy, scammy ways, I tell you that they're all about the schemes and all about the scams, that if I told you folks, the occupants, then they couldn't force or lie and say that they're living here. They can't force or lie and say they're living here anyway. And they also can't allow other people to live here above the occupancy. It's just so ridiculous that I have to even explain this. But I want to end on the note of this. The people who are spreading these lies, and they have the means and the resources to spread these lies, mess with the wrong type of person. I want you to see this, and I want you to spread this around. They want to keep certain opportunities and resources away from regular people like me. They want to keep us down, and they definitely want to keep us from spreading the word that anything is possible. I'm telling you folks, you can do these things. You just have to have the opportunities and the people willing to give you a chance. That editor gave me a chance. She stayed on the phone with me. She called me several times, and I called her several times, and made sure that not only was that article published, but I got $300. That was in 1993. You know how much $300 is? That's a lot of money today, let alone in 1993 for a teenager. So on that note, I want to thank you for watching. Subscribe for more videos. And again, I showed you in a previous video what these people are doing to me with their imaginary videos in my head. No, this is to disable me. Thanks for watching.